Cheers. Cool. Yeah, so I'm Dean Hall, creator of DayZ and the CEO of RocketWerkz. It's kind of pretty cool for me to be here in Iceland. I think I fell in love with Iceland about 5 minutes after I actually landed. And it's also the home of like one of my favorite games, EVE Online. And I'm going to sort of dial a little bit into that today. So, am I pushing the right button? When in doubt, try the other one. No? We might just have to stick with this slide. It's not the most interesting. We just do this until everyone follows me on Twitter, and then we get to carry on with the presentation. Oh, cool. They could just click next every time I say next, maybe. That could work. Oh, look at that. Bingo. There we go, yeah. So, my studio, RocketWerkz, basically after I finished up with Bohemia, so I guess a bit of background, I originally went to work with Bohemia in the Czech Republic on their game ARMA 3, because I was ex-military, and I sold them the idea to DayZ, and they hired me back as a consultant to help actually deliver the game. And I did that for 3 years. So I went to the Czech Republic on a 6-month contract, and I stayed there for 3 years. But my dream was really to set up my own studio. And since about August last year, that's what I've been doing. And there's two teams. One team in London working on a pretty ambitious 20-person project. Started out as a 1-person prototype and sort of rapidly escalated. And then a 4-person team in New Zealand. You know, because New Zealand and London are so close, right? Why not? So, it's entirely self-funded as well. You'll probably see why as I go through the slides. I'm here today to sort of talk about virtual worlds. And I guess the first question is that really a future trend? You know, we hear a lot about virtual reality. You know, I was just talking to Jeff before about what he thought was trends, you know, talking about like Clash of Clans and the whole alliance thing. There was that really great pitch from, was it Solid Worlds or something? Solid Clouds, which I thought was pretty awesome. I would play the hell out of that game. So, but you know, I saw a lot of in a lot of people's presentations that people were doing a lot of market research. They were looking at the competitors and that. I guess I have to have a bit of a confession, is that I don't really care about that. I don't care what the market's doing. I don't care what the competitors are doing. I don't care what the numbers show. I just care what I want to play. And I usually finish up work, and I'm not paid, so for me I only go to work to do, you know, to have fun. When I finish up work on a Friday, I hang out with my friends, and we will just play through until we have to sleep on Sunday. You know, games like Crusader Kings, multiplayer. I was trying to convince Jeff to play that. Start with a duchy in England. That's the best place to start. And yeah, and so for me, it's about playing these games that I really want to play. And I think the first thing is to start with, for me, redefining what a virtual world is. There's so much language in the development of video games that can really frustrate me at times. I'll give an example from the project I'm working on in London. I don't want to say what it is, but I remember sitting down with one of our artists, Rashad. He's ex-Bethesda, and we were defining how we wanted to make the game. And I was explaining how we wanted darkness to work. So if the lights were off and the player was just relying on their helmet light, what would they see? And, you know, I said I want it to be dark. I want it to be really dark. So they go away, and I come back and I look at it, and I was like, I can still see the dark parts. And he's like, well, yeah, because, you know, our cube maps and stuff won't work if it's completely dark. But what I really wanted was really dark. And it's the same thing for me with virtual worlds. So I'll use the example of Grand Theft Auto. So I've been playing a lot of Grand Theft Auto online lately, but it's very smoke and mirrors. And for me, in order to be a virtual world, it's really got to matter to me. And what I find is you're really excited by something like Grand Theft Auto Online and that because you're in there and there's cars and there's people and the environment looks amazing. But when you kind of push those sort of paper walls around you, you realize that nothing changes. And that's always really bothered me. I call it context gaming. So when I play a game, I want to feel what I'm doing matters. And I guess, going back to my, is this a future trend? I guess I don't know whether it is, but I want it to be one. So I'm kind of here to say, please make these games. Because that's, for me, what misses from a lot of games. When I play Minecraft, how many people have played Tekkit, the mod for Minecraft? I wonder if my New Zealand accent's getting in the way a bit here. Anyone play Tekkit? Like one or two people? Oh, you should play Tekkit. But my problem with Tekkit is, like, basically you build machines, so you can build like a nuclear reactor and stuff. My problem is I ask why. Why am I building a nuclear reactor? And my friends will be like, so we can have lots of power. But why do we have lots of power? And I think that, and I kind of learned this from DayZ, we intrinsically understand as humans, we understand the concept of loss and cruelty. I'm sure everyone's seen The Matrix. I hope there's a spoiler alert here. If you haven't seen The Matrix yet, I mean, you're probably not going to. So there's the scene in there where, Agent Smith and that's talking with Neo and talking about when they first made the simulation that everyone's brain's running, it was all happy and it was all great. And people just rejected it. And so they made it more like real life where there's cruelty, there's loss, there's death and things like that. And people accepted it. And I personally think there's an element of truth in that. DayZ originally started as a simulation tool for soldiers after I did my survival training in Brunei. And I got really badly injured, and I thought there's got to be a better way than putting soldiers in these really difficult situations to get an emotional context. And it was when I started adding sort of a semi-authentic loss that I started to notice the soldiers were having an emotional reaction. Because normally you just go into a simulation, people are dying, you just carry on. But that's not what happens in real life. Someone dies and you stop and you try and deal with it, or they get hurt. So yeah, I think we intrinsically understand the concept of cruelty and loss. I also like to think about what I call the economy of difficulty. A great place to talk about it. So EVE Online for me really sums this up really well. I've never really gelled with the concept of superheroes. I've never really found that interesting, unless it's kind of your everyman sort of superhero. The reason is, it kind of goes back to that concept of loss, that concept of cruelty that seems very, maybe I'm just really cynical, but, it seems very real to me, is that I ask the question, well, why am I special? And DayZ was very much an extension of that. It's like, you're not special, you don't matter, you die very easily, and that kind of thing. So that's something that I've been exploring a lot in my next game, and I think it's a theme of EVE Online I've always really liked. And it worries me sometimes, I don't know whether other people think this, but I feel a lot when I talk to people in the industry. I was demoing my game at GDC, and I feel like sometimes people think of EVE Online as an outlier, and people do that with DayZ. They say, oh, permadeath, people don't really. Sometimes, maybe every once in a while, it kind of works. But for me, like playing Crusader Kings, Iron Man mode, stuff like that, I just feel it gives me such a great emotional context. With DayZ as well, we really looked at what I've referred to here as the layers of little that do a lot. And this is an area of survival that I think, to me, is an intrinsic part of what I'm trying to convince you of virtual worlds. So it's not just what does the world look like, which I think is what VR can deliver, but for me, it's about making the player feel like they're in a world, they're surviving, and what they do matters. And I don't think it's as in your face as this is this cool feature or this is that. It's these little layers. So in DayZ, if you look at any individual part of it, they kind of suck. And sometimes they don't kind of suck, they really suck. So even the visuals, you know, the game was quite old that it was based on, ARMA 2 and stuff like that. And yeah, and so those little layers, like you need food, you need hunger. In my new game in London, we've got 20 people on, we're looking at the concept of madness. So if you haven't spent time around a player in a while, you've kind of got cabin fever going on. So look at adding these little layers on top that I personally think are really important. Because if you're making the player balance all those little factors, I think it gives a really compelling emotional experience. So what does this all look like? For me, and I guess to give a hint at the project that I'm mainly doing in London, is a massive interconnected experience where we as the developers don't directly control the experience of the players. So we're really generating the world, generating the rules, the cruelty of the world, and then giving it to the players and seeing what they do with it. So I was saying to Jeff before, I'll either look really smart or really stupid in about 6 months. What I've really learned as part of this is that we need a new language, is it dark or is it game dark? New tools. I partnered with a company called Improbable. Henrique from Bossa has been doing some stuff with them as well. And then whole new approaches as to how we're actually doing this. Unfortunately, that can be quite expensive when you get a wee way along and then decide, well, we need to do it again in a different way. And I think ultimately one of the big things I've learned is what best achieves immersion out of this. And yeah, I don't really know the answer to that. I'm intrigued to see how virtual reality can play into that. But personally, I really think that there's a lot more to that immersion than just virtual reality, than just the visuals. And I kind of felt like as an industry, we were getting to this point where we didn't care about visuals anymore, and then suddenly virtual reality does well, and we're right back there. So, yeah. So I don't know how much time I've got, but if anyone had any questions, yeah, feel free. Yeah? Yeah, not for my next game. So my next game, to give a little bit of a hint, it's actually not even a first person. It's more of an isometric view, looking at actually even grid-based. The reason for that is I still feel like, even just as a designer and that, there's still so much that I need to learn about, say, building a massive world. Like your whole game design decisions become completely different. I know EVE Online grappled with this for a very long time. So for me, definitely with that project, which is progressing quite well, I'm not looking at VR. I am interested at looking at VR, but I'd say I'm like a total noob when it comes to VR at the moment. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, thanks very much for inviting me to Iceland. It's been really awesome, and yeah, I've been really enjoying Slush Play. Thanks.